Ultramega issue number 9 from Image Comics. This is the final issue, sadly, because this run has been amazing so far. And it might be the final issue of the series. There has been no announcement of a volume 2 or anything like that, but fingers crossed, maybe we'll get one. But let's dive right in. So we start off with Jason wandering through the desert, and we see what looks like the fin of a sand shark coming at him. And this just reminds me of the old cartoon series Street Sharks. I don't know if anyone remembers that. I loved it. I thought it was great. I loved all those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle knockoffs. And we cut to Noah, who is in the battle ladder of 1,000 planets, and he's finishing up his training. His training is all done. He's about to leave. He's been training there for a long time. However, in the real world, only seconds have passed. So we kind of have this whole DBZ time capsule thing going on. And they basically say we can't let him leave without a mirror. He basically needs an opposite. Otherwise, his power will grow too big and he might go crazy. So I guess every Ultramega needs like their counterpoint, their mirror opposite to keep them in check, to keep the balance steady. And turns out that his balance is the devil, the Leviathan. I'm going to be skipping some stuff. So we have the ultimate Ultramega, the guy who was basically, he came over and he took over the planet and he is able to create weapons out of other kaiju parts. I'm just going to call him the ultimate Ultramega. Anyways, he has an ability where he's using other kaijus and he's shooting them like bullets. Basically, his power is that he can control kaijus and Ultramega and anything that has like a similar power. He can kind of like manipulate their body into weapons and stuff, which is a lot like the guy from Jujutsu Kaisen, actually. Noah is free. He's back on Earth. The Leviathan comes and swallows him whole. And inside the Leviathan, he sees the skeleton of his dad. And the interesting thing here is that he has no reaction. I thought this was kind of like, at first I was like, is this like a dream or something? Like the Leviathan crashed onto him and then like he has this vision. But no, the Leviathan swallows him up. He sees the skeletal remains of his dad. And he doesn't have any kind of reaction whatsoever. He just kind of, I guess, ignores it. But inside his dad's mouth is this item that he grabs, this crystal with the eyeball, and he takes it with him, and then he becomes free of the Leviathan. And we see this moment where he goes to like a shopping mall, and there's some kaijus there, and they're like grabbing meat. Like they're basically shopping. And he goes up to the kaiju, and he pulls out the little eyeball dude, and he has it touch fingertips with one of the kaijus, and it basically morphs into the kaiju queen. Yeah, this series is very, very trippy. But this is the start of our final battle between Ultramega and the Ultimate Ultramega. And Ultimate basically grabs his, what he calls his goons. Like everything he calls is like a goon gun, a goon bomb, which I get what they're going. It's, you know, goons as in hired goons. But Gen Z just kind of ruined the word goon for me. Because now all I think are like gooners, which is completely different than hired goons. But yeah, he's basically kicking off the battle. So we have Ultramega versus Ultimate Ultramega. Noah's kicking butt at first. Like he snaps this guy's neck. He blows off his arms. Meanwhile, the Kaiju Queen is going after Ultimate's hench people, like his sidekicks and stuff. But then that's when Ultimate reveals that I don't need my arms to be able to use my powers. And so he uses his feet to use his powers to gather a bunch of kaijus to him, and then he creates giant arms. This is such a trip. Like, me just explaining this, I'm like, as the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm like, yeah, that actually happened. That's weird. Like, I read this, and even just talking about it, I'm like, yeah, this feels like a trip. But it's an amazing trip. So we have the Kaiju Queen fighting against a bunch of kaijus. Meanwhile, we have Ultimate Ultramega versus Noah. And it's just kind of like a bloody fight. We have arms getting blown off, bodies morphing into weapons and stuff. We have Ultimate basically throwing a bunch of tiny baby kaijus at Noah, and it causes them to explode. At one point, we have the, oh my god, what was the scientist's name? Stefan. He shows up in a giant mech, and he's fighting to protect his queen. So we have Noah, like he gets surrounded by a bunch of kaiju, so he turns into a giant kaiju turtle to like protect himself, and then he has like jets on his shell. So he basically is turning into Gamera. And yeah, we just have this the crazy fight just keeps on going crazy. I don't know how else to explain it. Me explaining what's going on does this series no justice. You have to read this for yourself. But I'm going to do something right here. I'm going to stop the spoilers here. I'm going to give my thoughts on what I've covered so far. And then afterwards, I'm going to do like a little 5-second countdown. And then I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled, I'll tell you when you can like click off and stuff. But for anyone who doesn't mind, you know, figuring out like how this series ends, you can keep going. But right now, here's the spoiler-free thoughts. This issue was awesome. Like, the art is amazing. I love just like the crazy humor. I don't know how to describe it. It's not necessarily dark humor. It's like surreal, dark, gallows kind of humor all mixed in together. The artwork, as I said before, is amazing. It's very like kinetic and just energetic. Like, things really pop on the page. The coloring is awesome. It's just it's great. I freaking love the artwork. I love the little like tokusatsu references in here, like Gamera and stuff. I love just how crazy the fight scene is, where it not just between Noah and the ultimate Ultramega, but also like Stefan showing up in the mech, the Kaiju Queen. Like, everything is just insane. I will say that, again, one of my nitpicks was just Noah's lack of reaction to his dad dying. Like, he discovers his dad's corpse, and he has no reaction to it whatsoever. Then again, maybe it's because he's been spending, like, I don't know how many years this says, but he's spent so much time in this ultimate dimension training that maybe his ties to Earth have kind of been shattered because he's been away from it for so long. It would also explain why Jason's corpse is like already skeletized when Noah discovers it. It's because it's been in the body of Leviathan for so long. But I kind of would have liked at least just maybe one type of reaction from him. Like, just, you know, it doesn't even have to be like a single tear or something. Just a little bit of sadness on his face. But that's kind of like it. All in all, this is fantastic. I highly recommend picking up this series if you haven't already. It is phenomenal. It is one of the best things I've read in a very, very long time. I love this series, and I'm hoping it gets a volume 2. So yeah, that's it for the spoiler-free territory. So I'm going to do just this quick little 5-second countdown, and then I'm going to jump into spoiler territory. So if you're going to click off from here, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or dislike if you didn't. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notification. Leave a comment. I love to hear your guys' feedback or just thoughts on whatever it is I'm covering. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. And for everyone else, the spoilers are going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so our fight just continues. It's crazy. It's insane. We have a moment where like Noah grows like a tail that turns into a fist, and then he uses it to slice into Ultimate and just cut him into a bunch of pieces. And I even like the little pose that he does. It kind of reminds me of the fusion dance, like one part of the fusion dance. Another part, it reminds me of like the beginning of Kamen Rider's Henshin. It was with Kamen Rider 2 in the original. Like, he does kind of like the 2 hands to one side pose. So I'm wondering if that's where it's from. But even though he gets diced into a bunch of little pieces, his main portion like pops out of like the Ultimate's main portion, which is just like this head and this really tiny skinny body with giant fists. And basically this is like his essence. This is like his core. Like, everything else around him was just him using his powers just to like grow his body bigger and stuff. But this is his actual form, and even this form is very, very strong. I love this moment where we see him, like, this is straight out of anime, where we see Ultimate and he like punches Noah, and he's so happy, not because he's punching Noah, but because of the fact that this is the greatest fight he's ever been. Like, finally he finds someone who is his equal. And so he's like, this is the greatest feeling I've ever had. And he starts like having the crocodile tears. And then in the background we see like his face, and he's doing the like the smug smile with the sparkles. This is like straight up anime panel. And we have the three little kaijus that were sent to Earth to help Ultramega. They finally show up and they basically merge together into a body. And their body is still very tiny. Like their body is like the size of like maybe a regular human, not even. They pull a Thanos Ant-Man meme, but instead of crawling up Thanos' butt, if anyone is like unfamiliar with that meme, there was a meme where they're like, Ant-Man can easily destroy Thanos. All he has to do is shrink himself down, crawl into Thanos' butt, and then grow big again. That's how you kill Thanos. Well, basically they do that here, only instead he flies into Ultimate Mega's nose. So he goes into the nose, and then he kind of like expands a little bit, and ends up blowing out the back of Ultimate Mega's head. So half of his head is just missing. But even then, he's still alive, and he just blows out the little Ultra dudes. And he says that, I don't need my brains. I'm powered by pure goddamn Ultra Mega excellence. The Ultra Mega is rooted in every cell. I am the absolute Ultra Mega. And that's when Noah decides, okay, we got to finish this off. So he rushes over, he grabs this, what looks kind of like an eyeball or just like a red gem on the ultimate, I guess, absolute Ultra Mega. And he starts powering up this blast as Ultimate is like crushing him and starting to eat his hand. But Noah's able to get this blast off, and it completely vaporizes the absolute Ultra Mega. So the big evil is destroyed. Noah has survived. He's standing in a giant ocean of blood, because this is like how brutal and violent this battle has been. And we see Beth, like Beth starts walking to him. We see the aftermath where the mech is destroyed, but Stefan is still alive. The Kaiju Queen is still alive and is just slashing at the corpses of all the kaijus that it's fought. And we just have this funny moment where like it starts eating some of the bodies, and then Stefan just kind of sits next to it with his alien dog. And then we see that Noah has lost his hand again. So he has just recently grown it back, and now it's gone again. And it's because the blast that he used to defeat the absolute ultimate Ultra Mega has vaporized his hand. And then we have this weird moment where Beth sits next to him, holds his hand, and then we see her hand morph as the two look at each other and smile. And it turns out that she's a kaiju. And I'm kind of wondering, has she been a kaiju all this time? Was there a point where she like had the kaiju virus and succumbed to it? But that's the end. That's the final shot. The final shot is the two of them sitting together holding hands in a river of blood. I do like how their shadow basically looks straight up like the opening of Ultraman. Specifically the very first Ultraman, where we see like the silhouettes of all the creatures and stuff. I love that. I love how like we did that with their shadows. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I guess Beth was a kaiju this entire time. Or maybe she just succumbed to the virus at some point. But the day is saved. The ultimate Ultra Mega's defeated. All his goons are defeated. I'm assuming there's still kaijus around. And I guess with the Kaiju Queen now involved, maybe humanity, like mankind's going to be able to live alongside the kaijus. I guess we'll see. Well, I guess we won't see because there's been no announcement of second volume. I do hope that there is. I don't know. It would be kind of nice to see like a volume that deals with the aftermath and deals with humanity and kaijus living together. And I don't know, maybe that can be what the story is about. Like just you have, I guess you can have like the anti-kaijus and then the anti-humans factions, and then we have to like try to make peace between them, and then maybe like another outside threat can come in and force the kaijus on Earth and the humans on Earth to like put aside their differences and stuff. That does sound a little bit cliche though. But yeah, this was awesome. I love this. This was freaking phenomenal. A little bit weird. Especially, like I said, the ending. The ending is kind of trippy. But I thought this was an amazing run. I love this so much. And this is one of those series where I really disliked the beginning. And the writer won me over. So for anyone who like didn't watch my video in the first issue, I thought the first issue was amazing, but then I hated the second issue where we had like this huge time skip where basically the first issue dealt with Jason as the Ultramega fighting against his son, his kaiju son, and getting killed, or at least getting his head lopped off, and his body ends up drowning an entire city, like the blood. And then all of a sudden, the next issue cuts to a post-apocalypse years later where kaijus have taken over Earth. And I was like, that was kind of lame. I wanted it to be set in modern times. But the more I kept reading, the more the new setting like won me over. And I freaking love this. This was such an amazing journey. I want to see more of what James Harren has to do. Not necessarily just in terms of artwork, though I do love his artwork, but I want to see more of his writing. Especially if it's just more like just crazy, surreal, over the top, just wild, what the F am I reading kind of stuff like this. Like this was this, it was trippy, but it does make sense. It's just, it's surreal, but it's surreal in a way that's not like just random stuff hitting the panels and, you know, you just make it up as you go along. Like there's an actual cohesive story in here. It's just surrounded by a bunch of just like surreal happenings that's going on outside of the story. It's hard to explain, but yeah, this is amazing. I love this. And you know what? I'm going to give this a 10. Not necessarily this issue, but I'm going to give this entire volume a 10 out of 10. This is going to be the second time I've ever given anything a perfect score. Like even my favorite franchise of all time in terms of comic books with Hack Slash does not get a 10 out of 10. But this series is getting a 10 out of 10. Like this issue would get like a 9 out of 10, but all the other issues combined, this is getting a 10 out of 10 for me. It was perfect. I loved every issue of this. Even when it came to the second issue and I was like, I'm not really sure about the post-apocalyptic setting, it won me over. And then when I was going over the series again, doing a second read, I completely enjoyed the second issue a lot more once I realized that the author knew exactly where he was going to be taking us with this story. So yeah, this is a perfect 10 out of 10. It's amazing. I highly recommend picking it up yourself. If you haven't read this already, read it. You will not be disappointed. So here's fingers crossed we get a volume 2. But if not, this was a fantastic ride, and I'm glad to have read it. And I'm hoping you were glad to watch this video. I want to say take care. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.